All right, folks, this is what I like to call a tool video. And in this case, it's going to be a tool maintenance video. And what I have here is my 12-inch Canon dime tip carving bar. And this is mounted on my Echo 2511P. Great thing about this saw is it weighs nearly nothing, has decent power for small carvings and detail work. But again, the big win for this saw is lightweight. It's the best power to weight ratio saw in the lightweight category that you can get. So Stihl makes some other small lightweight saws, but this one is lighter, and that's why I love it. That and Echo is super affordable. Here's what we're talking about: bar maintenance. So this is the Canon dime tip, and if you look closely, you can see we've got some abnormalities on the tip here. And it's kind of where you can see that the steel is mushrooming out, and that happens from heat, right, and wear of the chain going around the tip. And it's not good. And once it starts, the best thing you can do is remedy it as quickly as possible. I get into stages where I'm just really busy and I push the saw for longer than I should. And so I'm paying for it a little bit because it's chipped the tip of my bar there. And if I were to regularly maintain this bar, you can prevent a lot of that. So what I mean by maintaining it, let me show you what I do to fix this problem. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that have a million different ways in order to take care of this raised portion of steel. My way, because it's fast, quick, and easy, is to take my band file sander and the goal is to remove as much of that raised up portion as possible without taking off any more steel than I have to. The next thing I'll do is I'll mount this in the vise, and I'll work on refining this shape a little bit. All right, so we got it in the vise. I'm gonna take my band file sander. I'm gonna try to hold it as, I guess, perpendicular as I can to the two rails. In other words, I wanna create an even surface across these two exterior portions of the bar. This is a 220 grit sandpaper on the band file sander, and I'm going really slow. I'm not trying to remove any more material than I have to. There are going to be chainsaw carvers and small engine guys and chainsaw guys who will probably say this is not the best way to do this, but this is what works for me. You could do this with files, and I'm sure there's a ton of other ways you could do it, but this works. And again, the goal is to take as little material as I can off of the bar. You can see we've already reduced quite a bit of the chipping there. So I'll spend a little bit more time on this bar, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the final result. All right, I spent a little time with this off camera, probably literally just like maybe 2 minutes, okay? Now I know this isn't perfect, right? I'm not going for perfection, I'm going for better, much better than it was. When I rub my finger over the bar, there's no longer a burr on that edge. Now you can visibly see these burrs when they occur. Again, the steel will start to mushroom up. But another thing you'll notice is when you're carving, if you're carving and you feel like your tip isn't cutting the wood, what's happening is that mushroom where it's coming off of the side of the bar, is actually preventing your saw from going through the wood. Now, I find this is more prevalent with the 04 3 gauge that I use, because it's such dainty chain that any kind of imperfection in that bar will cause it to feel like you're really having to push through the material, even with a sharp chain. And folks will be like, well, I don't get it. I've sharpened my chain, or I'm using a new chain. I don't understand what's happening. The culprit is usually the bar. And this, this maintenance applies to regular chainsaw bars with a sprocket in them as well. You just don't typically see this type of distortion in the tips, because that sprocket carries a lot of the pressure of that chain going around the tip of the bar. Now, I'm not an engineer, and I don't pretend to be. I am just telling you that as an artist, a chainsaw carver who has to maintain his own tools, these are the things that I've learned, in many cases, the hard way. I can't tell you how many of the steel carving bars I just completely busted up because I didn't take the time once in a while to just do a little maintenance. That's it. And so the other thing I'll do is I'll check the rest of the bar and make sure we don't have any other high spots. A lot of times you'll get some wear toward the back of the bar here. So I can see that I've got some issues right here. So I'll take my band file sander and clean that up a bit. And then if you need to clean up inside of this rail, again, there's specific tools you can use and that sort of thing. But I just use a piece of 220 grit sandpaper and take it inside to clean up any of the roughness on the inside of that. I know there's a name for it. Again, apologies for not knowing all the terminology, but that channel, you'll keep that channel inside there clean. So again, this is one of those things that you should do often. Visibly inspect your bars every time you use them. I knew this one needed some attention, and I kept pushing the bar. I will say these Canons hold up to a lot of abuse. They hold up to more abuse than the steels do, but a little bit of maintenance will go a long way in extending their life. So again, I know there's some folks out there who will say there's a million ways to do this better, but had I not been filming this process would have maybe taken me 5 minutes, and I'm back to carving. And because I'm this is a profession for me, this isn't an expendable item. I buy multiple bars a year. Now I have multiple saws. So, when they get to the point of wearing out past this reinforced section of the tip, that's when I'll look at replacing them. Or if they end up with a really big chip that I can't take out, I'll look at replacing it. But anyway, probably a lot of talking to explain a simple process, but hopefully that was helpful to anybody that watches the video. Thanks for watching.